Before joining Syngenta 2.5 years ago, my career had been focused on farm management and agronomy. I believed that all the generic and parallel products offered and delivered on farm were as good as or nearly as good as the original product. Talking to farmers and agronomists throughout the UK, I believe this is a widely held opinion. The truth is that this is not always the case. Sometimes it can be difficult to be sure that what's in the can is what you expected it to be. This video uncovers some of the facts that I've found so far. This is an informational film. It represents my personal views about illegal parallel imports and some of the differences found between Syngenta or another R&D manufacturer's products and those of the genuine generic competitors. There's a substantial difference between a parallel registration of a Syngenta or another R&D manufacturer's product and a generic registration. Generic products can be manufactured anywhere in the world and require a full registration to gain approval from the Chemicals Regulation Directorate for use in the UK. They often contain the same active ingredient as those offered by the R&D manufacturers, but the way they are made and formulated can be entirely different. This can have a dramatic effect on performance. Even the very best AI can be rendered virtually ineffective or made difficult to use with the wrong formulation. We all know what a pain it is if products don't mix well and lines or nozzles get blocked in sprayers. Formulation of products is increasingly becoming a point of difference between products as R&D manufacturers find it more difficult to discover new active ingredients, the cost of which has nearly doubled in the last 10 years. Those of you who have been to see our research centre at Gillett's Hill within the last year will have seen our new formulation robot, which makes thousands of variants to optimise the performance of an active ingredient on its intended crop. Here's an example with Syngenta's fluazinam product and 3 generic equivalents. Firstly, you can see a colour difference in some of these. Secondly, if we shake these up and let them settle, you'll find that the generic formulations we've tested settle out faster. Syngenta's laboratories tested 4 generic fluazinam products. Of these, 2 contained below the legal specification of active ingredient, with 1 sample containing 12% less than claimed on the label. Turning to leaf coverage and efficacy, when we look at these leaves under an electron microscope, you can see a difference in particle size and coverage of the leaf cells, with the particles of the generic products we tested tending to gather in the low valleys between the leaf cells, rather than distributing over the whole leaf surface. Finally, independent field trials conducted by Eurofins in 2009 showed that the generic fluazinam products tested were at least 10% less effective at blight control compared to Syngenta's fluazinam product. Parallel registrations are relevant only within the EU, and parallel imports can only occur between the member states of the EU. Where pricing opportunities exist between EU countries, importers can obtain any product registered in the UK from another EU country where the same product is also registered. The imported product, if registered after April 2008, must be identical to an existing UK product that has been through a full registration process. Full registration of a product requires submission of a huge amount of efficacy and environmental data. Parallel registrations do not have to go through this full process and simply require a summary form to be completed for certification by the Chemicals Regulation Directorate, the CRD. Parallel imports may be repackaged but must be relabelled with a UK specification label and a MAP number. Despite the fact that there are many legitimate parallel imports on the market, this is not always the case. Syngenta frequently receives reports from farms where a grower believes he's received a product that is Syngenta's with a different label, but in fact when Syngenta tests the contents, it turns out to be a poor imitation. In my opinion, it's easy to obtain a parallel registration, to persuade the CRD that the product the importer intends to import is a genuine Syngenta or another R&D manufacturer's product from another EU country, and then to import an imitation of the genuine product. We and our distributors have found batches of imitation product within batches of genuine parallel imports in the same boxes, in the same cans, with the same map number and the same label. It's almost impossible for you to tell the difference until you've poured it into your sprayer or put it on your crops without the sort of analytical equipment Syngenta and some other laboratories have. Without any further checks being carried out on the products actually imported, such as those carried out by Syngenta scientists, there's no way of being able to determine whether the product being supplied is in fact genuine Syngenta or another R&D manufacturer's product, or an imitation. Recently we were called by an agronomist to see a farmer having problems using a parallel azoxystrobin product on his potato planter. Our analysis showed the presence of a solvent not used by Syngenta in its own azoxystrobin products and impurities within the AI itself. My advice is to avoid problems when you are offered an alternative brand. Question your distributor as to whether it is a parallel or a generic. If it's a parallel, ask whether they're confident it's a genuine parallel import of the equivalent UK registered product. If it's a generic, ask whether they've tested it against the R&D equivalent and what the significance of any difference is. As a farmer, I want to ensure I get the best value for money and the most competitive prices for the products I buy. I feel it's an achievement to ensure my individual input costs are as good as, if not better than those I benchmark myself against. While many parallel imported products are legitimate, those which are not what they should be could increase your business risk. For example, by resulting in reduced pest control or blocked nozzles. Similarly, generic products often appear to offer a competitive position in the market. However, if the price looks too good to be true, it may well be, and there may be an advantage offered by the R&D product which is not also found in the generic equivalent. So the answer to the title of this film is yes, you do get what you pay for.